Welcome to Twilight Fables, where the stories you thought you knew reveal the shadows they've always kept hidden. Tonight, we unravel the tale of Rumpelstiltskin, not as a mischievous trickster, but as a maker of doubles, a weaver of replacements, who takes more than children. He takes lives. The story begins in a kingdom where hunger gnawed like a stray dog at every door. The rivers were thin, the fields cracked, and the wheat bent low, brittle as old bones. Yet in the middle of this famine, there was a boast. The miller, a man with nothing but a flapping mouth and cracked hands, puffed himself up before the king one market day. Perhaps he thought it would bring favour, or perhaps he had told the lie so many times it had hardened into his truth. He spoke of his daughter, Elsa, a girl with quiet eyes and nimble fingers, and he said she could spin straw into gold. The king's gaze sharpened. Gold was rarer than water, rarer than bread, rarer than hope itself. His coffers had grown shallow, his soldiers restless. If the girl truly had such a gift, she could fill his vaults again. So Elsa was taken from her father's side, her protests lost beneath the rasp of the king's decree. She was brought into the castle's bowels, led down spiralling stairs where the air grew stale and damp. Torches guttered along the walls, their flames coughing against stone. At last, she was thrust into a chamber. Straw filled the room in heaps, like yellow corpses piled high. In the centre stood a spinning wheel, its wood scarred with grooves from fingers long vanished. The king's voice was iron. Spin this straw into gold by morning. If you fail, you will die. The door shut. The lock screamed shut behind it. Elsa sat among the straw, her heart stumbling inside her chest. She had no magic, no skill beyond ordinary work. She could spin thread, yes, but not gold, never gold. She tried. She sat at the wheel, hands trembling, feeding straw through the spindle. It came out as what it was, dry, brittle, useless. No gleam of gold, no salvation, only her shallow breaths and the creak of the wheel. Hours bled into despair. The shadows on the wall lengthened. She pressed her face into her palms, wishing for death to come swiftly when morning arrived. And then a voice. You weep too loudly. The stones will learn your sorrow and never let it go. Elsa's head snapped up. She was no longer alone. He stood in the corner, a figure small and crooked, with limbs that seemed jointed at strange angles. His head was large, bald, but for a tuft of hair that curled like smoke, and his smile was thin as a knife's edge. His clothes were patched from a dozen fabrics, none of which seemed to belong together. But his eyes were pools, black and shining, swallowing light. Who are you? Elsa whispered, clutching the wheel as if it could shield her. I have been called many things, he said. Most forget them once they have been spoken, but tonight You may call me a helper." He stepped forward, his boots clicking against stone, and with each click Elsa thought she heard another faint echo, as if other unseen feet mirrored him. "I can spin straw into gold," he said, "but I do not do it freely." Elsa's lips trembled. "What would you want?" He leaned close, the air around him smelling faintly of iron and dust. "A trinket, a token, something of yourself." She had only one necklace, a chain her mother had given her before she died, bearing a small locket with a pressed flower. She held it out with shaking hands. The crooked man plucked it from her palm, turning it between his fingers. Yes, this will do." He set to work. The wheel sang under his touch. His fingers blurred, faster than hers could follow, and the straw slid into the spindle, flowing out as gold thread. Pile upon pile gleamed, until the whole room seemed to glow with a sickly, entrancing light. By morning, every stalk of straw had been transformed. When the king returned, his breath hitched at the sight. Gold lay in coils like sleeping serpents. His greed swelled. "You will do this again," he said. "Tonight, more straw." And so Elsa was left once more in a chamber, this time larger, the straw higher, the task crueler. She wept until her throat was raw, and again the crooked man appeared. "What will you give me this time if I save you?" he asked, teeth glinting. She offered her ring, the last piece of her mother's inheritance. He swallowed it in his palm as if it were nothing, and spun the straw into gold. The king's hunger only deepened. A third night, a third chamber. This time, he promised her not only survival, but a crown if she succeeded. A queen's crown. But Elsa had nothing left to give. When the crooked man returned, she fell to her knees. "I have nothing, nothing more. Please, help me. If I do not succeed, he will kill me." His smile widened, as if he had been waiting for those words. "Then you must give me something greater than trinkets," he whispered. "Promise me your firstborn child when you are queen. That will be my price." Her heart lurched. The thought was monstrous, but death was nearer. She saw the rope around her neck, the blade, the silence of the grave. Her survival clawed louder than reason. "I promise," she choked. The deal sealed itself in the air. She felt it, a tightening around her chest, a binding she could not unmake. He spun again. The room blazed with gold, and so Elsa became queen. But the story does not end there, for when her child was born, the crooked man came knocking, not at the castle door, but within her dreams. He seeped into her sleep, whispering at the cradle. His hands reached for the baby, pale and wrinkled, his eyes too black. "No," Elsa begged. "Please, I will give you anything else, anything." He tilted his head. "There is only one way to keep what is mine. You must name me. Speak my name, and the bargain breaks." He left her then, but the promise burned in her ears. Elsa searched. She sent servants across the kingdom, far and wide, to gather strange names from forests and caves, from villages and ruins. She whispered them each night when he appeared: Ashbane, Mirith, Golthar. He laughed at each, and all the while the baby grew weaker. Each night the crooked man's presence seemed to draw the child's breath shallower, as though he were feeding upon its life. At last, one servant returned with a story. He had seen the crooked man in the woods, dancing around a fire, singing to himself. He sang his own name, repeating it like a charm. Elsa's hope sharpened. She thought she had won, but when she spoke the name, when she breathed Rumpelstiltskin into the air, the crooked man's laughter did not falter. Instead, his grin widened, stretching his face until it seemed it might split. Clever girl, he purred, but names are not what you think they are. You guessed my sound, yes, but names are more than sound. They are self, and I do not give mine away. The shadows deepened around him. His hands reached not for the child, but for her. I take more than babies, Queen Elsa, he whispered. When the bargain is broken, I take the breaker, and in your place, I leave something better, something obedient. And as his fingers touched her skin, Elsa felt herself pulled away, torn like thread from a spool. Her screams echoed only inside her head as the world slipped away, and something else opened its eyes in her body. The moment Rumpelstiltskin's hands closed around Elsa, she felt herself unravel. It was not like dying, though she wished it had been. Death might have been merciful. Instead, she felt her body peeled away from her soul, like silk stripped from a loom, thread by thread. Her screams made no sound. Her hands reached for her child, but her fingers passed through the cradle as though she were smoke. When the tearing ceased, she was no longer in her chamber. The walls were the same, and yet not. The chamber had become grey and dim, a shadow's echo of itself. The torches flickered with pale flame, giving off no warmth. Her child's cradle stood empty, and the air was filled with a low hum, like a spinning wheel turning endlessly in the distance. Elsa clutched herself, shivering. She was still herself, or at least she thought she was, but the air around her felt heavy, pressing her down, keeping her from moving too quickly or too far. And then she saw her double, standing where she had stood. In the bright world she could no longer touch was another Elsa, her body, her face, her golden hair pinned back in braids. But her eyes, oh, her eyes, were just slightly wrong. They gleamed with a sheen too smooth, too obedient, like glass catching candlelight. The child stirred in the cradle, and the double smiled down at it, cooing softly. The baby seemed soothed. "No!" Elsa cried, rushing forward. But when she tried to seize the double's arm, her hand went straight through, her own reflection in water, That was all she was now, and yet the baby could not see her, could not hear her cries, only the double's lullaby. Her heart sank as she realized the cruel truth. The world would not mourn her. They would not know she had been replaced. The doppelganger had stepped into her skin, and no one would ever know the difference. Days passed, or at least Elsa thought they were days. The shadow world had no sun, no moon, only endless grey. She drifted from room to room, bound always to the spaces her double occupied, as if tethered to her own stolen flesh. She watched helplessly as the double walked through the castle halls, answering courtiers, smiling at the king. The king did not notice the faint stiffness in her smile, nor the way her voice sometimes paused, as if choosing words too carefully. "Strange, my love," he said once, brushing the doppelganger's cheek. "You seem softer these days." The double tilted her head, the glassy gleam in her eyes never wavering. "Perhaps I am only happier, my king. We have a child. We have gold. What more could we want?" The king smiled and kissed her forehead. Elsa, watching from the hollow air, wanted to tear her hair out. The worst torment was the child. Each night, Elsa would sit beside the cradle, whispering lullabies the child could no longer hear. Her voice dissolved into nothing, while the double's lullaby filled the air. The child grew, cradled in the arms of the impostor. The double knew how to hold it, how to kiss its brow, how to hush its cries. She was not clumsy or awkward. She was perfect, too perfect. Sometimes Elsa thought she saw a flicker of confusion in the baby's eyes, as if it sensed the difference. But then the double smile smoothed everything away, and the child nestled closer against her, forgetting. Elsa's despair gnawed at her like rats in the dark. Rumpelstiltskin appeared only once in this shadow world, stepping out from a wall of grey stone, as if it were a curtain. Elsa ran to him, rage flooding her veins. "Give me back my life! Give me back my child!" He cocked his head, lips curling in that same knife-thin smile. "You made a bargain, my queen. I honoured it. You named me, and so I did not take your child. Instead, I took you. You tricked me!" "All bargains are tricks, if you do not listen closely," he said, voice sing-song, as though mocking a child. "But do not despair. You are not gone. You are elsewhere." He gestured to the double, who was sitting in a sunlit chamber beyond the grey veil, cradling the infant. "See how she thrives. She is you, but better. She will never doubt, never falter, never fail. She will serve her king, her child, her kingdom. She is what the world wants you to be. Is that not merciful?" Elsa spat at him, though her spit dissolved before it touched the ground. His grin widened. "Do not waste your fury. If you truly wish to return, there is but one way. Your double must fail. She must crack, and when she does, then perhaps the world will remember you." With that, he vanished, leaving only the hum of the endless spinning wheel. Elsa's torment stretched into months. She could not sleep, though she grew weary. She could not eat, though hunger ached at her. Her existence was one of watching, always watching, powerless. And yet, she began to notice something. The double was perfect, but too perfect. When the child cried in the middle of the night, the double never sighed in exhaustion, never stumbled with heavy eyes. When the king grew angry during councils, the double never raised her voice, never disagreed, never faltered. The courtiers praised her, the king adored her, the child loved her, but Elsa could see the seams. The glassy gleam in her eyes sometimes lingered too long. Her smile stretched too smoothly, held too long before fading. And at night, when she thought no one was watching, she would stand at the window, perfectly still, her head tilted as if listening to something far away. Elsa began to wonder if the double was flawless, or if she too carried cracks waiting to be widened. The chance came one night when the baby grew ill. The child burned with fever, crying weakly in its cradle. Physicians rushed in, mixing herbs, whispering prayers. The double sat stiffly at the child's side, her glassy eyes fixed, her smile tight. Elsa, kneeling at the cradle's other side, sobbed, "Please, please don't let him die. Please." For the first time, she noticed the double hesitate. The glassy eyes blinked too slowly. The smile faltered for a heartbeat. The double's hands hovered awkwardly above the child, not knowing whether to stroke his brow or clasp his tiny fingers. "Do something!" the king roared at her, his voice trembling with fear. The double turned her head slowly, mechanically, and nodded, but her movements were stiff, wrong, like a puppet's string tangled. Elsa felt a flicker of hope. The double was faltering. She was not as flawless as she seemed, and if Elsa could find the weakness, perhaps, just perhaps, she could break through. But she would need more than hope. She would need to become the crack in the double's perfect mirror, and she would have to risk everything to do it. The child's fever raged on for 3 days. Elsa spent every moment beside the cradle, whispering prayers into the grey air that no one could hear. The physicians bled the boy, gave him bitter draughts, laid damp cloths on his head. The double, flawless queen that she was, sat watching with her glassy smile. But Elsa saw the hesitation, the stiffness, the unnatural pause before the double moved. She was not the mother, she only wore the mother's skin, and Elsa knew then that Rumpelstiltskin's trick had its own flaw. A copy could never feel. The double might fool the king, the courtiers, even the child in moments of comfort, but in suffering, in exhaustion, in grief, there the difference could show. Elsa clutched the edge of the grey cradle, her fingers passing through the wood. "If I can make her falter," she whispered to herself, "the king will see, he'll know." The question was how. That night, as the fever worsened, Elsa tried. She leaned close to the double, who sat stiffly at the bedside, whispering empty words. "He's dying," Elsa hissed into the glassy ear, though she knew her words were not heard. "You don't love him. You can't. You don't know how." The double's head tilted. Elsa froze. Could she hear? Slowly, the double's eyes turned toward the space where Elsa hovered. They gleamed strangely, reflecting no torchlight, and for a heartbeat, Elsa thought she saw herself looking back, not as she had been, but hollow, stretched, a face made from wax. Then the double turned back to the cradle, resuming her cooing lullaby. But Elsa's heart pounded. Something had stirred. On the fourth night, the child's fever broke, but his cries did not cease. He whimpered, restless, his eyes darting, as if searching for something unseen. Elsa sang. She poured her soul into the lullabies her mother had once sung to her. Though no sound reached the child's ears, she saw his body shift, his gaze flick toward her, his little hand stretched out, through the air, through the veil, reaching. "Please," Elsa whispered, "see me, remember me." And for the first time, the child's cries pierced the double's perfect calm. The glassy smile cracked, only slightly, but enough. The king noticed. "What's wrong, my love? Why do you look so pale?" The double blinked too slowly. I am only tired." It was the first unconvincing lie she had ever spoken. Elsa's heart leapt. The crack was widening. She pushed harder. "Each day," she whispered to her son, urging him to remember her touch, her voice, her warmth. Each night, she leaned into the double's ear, hissing, mocking, taunting. "You don't belong. You're not me. You'll never be me." The double began to falter. She walked with the same grace, but her steps sometimes stumbled. Her smile sometimes froze too long. The courtiers began to whisper. The queen seemed changed. The king, too, grew restless. "You are not yourself," he told her. "What troubles you?" The double only smiled, but her glassy eyes flickered. Elsa pressed on, and then came the breaking point. It was during a feast, when the child was brought before the court, rosy-cheeked once more. The double held him, smiling for the watching nobles. Elsa pressed against her, whispering into her ear, "He is not yours. He will never be yours. He knows me. He feels me. You are nothing but a mask." The double smile froze. Her hands clenched too tightly on the child's little body. He whimpered, squirming in her grasp. Gasps rippled through the hall. The king rose to his feet. "My queen, what are you doing?" The double's lips parted. No answer came. Her glassy eyes flicked toward the shadows, where Elsa stood, unseen but unyielding. And then the child cried out, reaching his arms not for the double, but toward the empty air where Elsa hovered. "Mama!" The hall fell silent. The king's face blanched. The courtiers murmured in fear. The double trembled. Her smile cracked. Her glassy skin rippled, as though seams beneath it had split. "No," she whispered, not to them, but to Elsa. Her voice was hollow, echoing, not human. "You cannot have it back. You are gone. You are nothing." Elsa stepped closer, her rage boiling. "I am the mother. I am the queen, and you are nothing." The child screamed louder, reaching for her. The double's body convulsed, twisting unnaturally, her features sliding like wax under heat. The hall erupted in terror, nobles scrambling back, the king shouting. With a shriek, the double's face collapsed inward, glass shattering from her eyes. Her body crumbled like paper burning, folding in on itself until only ash remained on the floor. The child fell, not into the ashes, but into Elsa's arms, real arms, flesh, warm and shaking. She gasped. She was back. The king stared at her in horror and awe. "Elsa, what sorcery?" Elsa clutched her child, tears streaming down her face. "Not sorcery. Truth. I was stolen." The ashes at her feet stirred. From them a laugh rose, thin, mocking, endless. Rumpelstiltskin's voice. "You cracked her well, clever queen," the voice whispered, curling through the hall like smoke. "But beware, doubles are not so easily destroyed. When a mask is broken, another may be woven, and some bargains never truly end." The ashes swirled, then vanished into the stone. The hall trembled with silence. The king, shaken, gathered her close. The courtiers whispered of curses, of devils. The child clung to her neck, sobbing into her shoulder. Elsa knew she had won her life back, but Rumpelstiltskin's laughter lingered in her bones, and she wondered how long before another mask, another shadow, came knocking at her door. Because names, she now knew, were not the only things he could take. He could take selves, and he would not stop with her.